What if doing something hard, like jumping into a freezing cold lake, could teach you how to open up about what's really going on inside? In this episode, I sit down with Andrew Robinson, the creator of Tough Yarns, a movement using physical challenges to inspire meaningful human connection. From his 100-day cold lake challenge to his newest series, asking strangers about the hardest moments in their lives, Andrew's mission is simple but powerful: to help people talk, listen, and connect through shared struggle. We dive deep into how courage, curiosity, and vulnerability can transform your life and why the toughest conversations are often the ones that set you free. Andrew, welcome to the Midlife Mavericks podcast. I'm stoked to have you here.
Mate, I'm stoked to be here, as we were just saying. I think it's been 10 years almost to the week, maybe. So, yeah, it's exciting.
Mate, the value of social media, there is some value there because I've been watching your story unfold for a few months now. And it's very impressive. Every time I see your posts, I'm just blown away by your courage and bravery to step into the challenge that you're going through. And I just really wanted to connect because I think your story and what you're doing will resonate with my audience, which is men in midlife, but it will resonate with a lot more people as well. But before we dive into cold lakes, tough yarns, and crazy rides, I'd love to start with a little bit of your story. What is the backstory that led you to this kind of work, mate? And where did this idea of tough yarns come from?
So I mean, it all intertwines, right? Like it all kind of comes together. I did a big run in 2021. I ran 10 great walks in 10 consecutive days, and that was kind of just a fun thing. I've had an itch to scratch ever since. So I kind of put my head down. I was like, what's next? You know? And the great rides came to the forefront of my attention, being 23 of New Zealand's great rides, that's what they're called. And I reached out to a social media marketing company through a friend of mine to build a bit of a platform to hopefully fundraise for Movember, using the great rides as kind of inspiration, I guess. And we were having a bit of a yarn, and he just super off the cuff said, why don't you ask people to jump in the lake, you know, to build a platform? And it was super off the cuff comment. I don't think he necessarily, definitely didn't think it would kind of go as far as it has. And I remember riding home from that catch up. It was a Friday night. It's probably 7 p.m-ish. And I was riding home thinking cold water, human connection, like difficult things, meaningful comments, just everything. And if it was earlier in the day, I probably would have picked up the GoPro and gone down to the lake then and there. But yeah, first thing Saturday morning, I went down and it's just, yeah, it's exploded. It's fascinating. You mentioned something just there, which, you know, talking about social media and how it can be used for good. I remember when I first started, maybe in the first couple of weeks, the irony wasn't lost on me that I was doing a project for mental health on a platform which is possibly, if not probably, the number one or the leading cause of a lot of the mental health issues that we have. And it was about 2 weeks in that I actually realized that it's not ironic that I'm there. That's where it needs to be. So,
yeah, awesome, mate. I'm glad it's there because that's how I stumbled on you again, mate. Like you said, we did touch base in London briefly when you were traveling and you came into the gym there. And I still remember you gave us a hand, I think, to lay the flooring that we were putting in the gym at the time. So it was very, very kind of you then, mate.
Good to pay my way somehow. I'm sure I got a free entry for it or something.
Oh, we let you train for the time you were there, I think. Well, it was all change of services, which is a great thing, mate. So appreciated your help there. It was tough. It was a tough physical work at that point. Dude, have you always leaned into challenges? Is that something that's just come naturally to you, or is that something you've learned through your life?
I think I've leant more and more into them as I get older. I grew up at a really not easy upbringing. I don't want to say easy, but pretty cushy. You know, I come from a nice family. My parents split up when I was 7, but other than that, like I had everything that I ever needed. You know, the ice cream was always full in the freezer kind of thing. Like, it was a pretty good life. And I think that's the reason that I lent into doing difficult things, was because maybe as men or as humans, but we seek maybe a rite of passage or something of the sort. And I've talked about it a little bit, but I think I seek discomfort because we have so much comfort. So, yeah.
Did you see it as like a lot of people avoid the tough stuff? And is that something that just like you didn't want to avoid, you wanted to step into?
No, I think I just discovered by accident that I'm really good at suffering and there's enjoyment on the other side of it. And so I just started leaning into it. Just after I met you, I ended up kind of getting an opportunity to go and do World's Toughest Mudder, which was a 24-hour obstacle course race. And that was where I realized that I'm pretty good at suffering. Like, I'm not the fastest or strongest or fittest or best athlete by any means, but I can keep going. And so I just, lent into that, and that led from one thing to another, into ultra running and obstacle racing and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible, mate. I love what you're doing in terms of like using a physical challenge to highlight the importance of the emotional challenge that a lot of guys are facing, which is pretty impressive. Did you find that your experience going through these physical challenges opened up greater levels of connection for you?
I think it gave me space to be able to deal with my own stuff. And that's what trail running and mountain biking and all that sort of stuff has really been able to do, is just give me time and space to be able to deal with whatever's going on in here. And it's a form of meditation, right? I remember having a bit of a debate with someone quite close to me, and they said that I do all this physical work, I should do some, or like I do all this work on my physical self, I should do some work on my emotional self, which obviously hurt. But I don't think they realized that most of this is actually, the physical is just a byproduct. It's a side hustle on the doing of the ultra running or the mountain biking or whatever it is. So
Yeah, there's so much research, isn't there, around the physical stuff, how great it is for our mental health. And I feel it brings us into our body. Like when we're actually doing the physical stuff, we do create that space. Whereas in other parts of our day, the friggin' noise that goes on all the time, we just don't have that space to maybe get clear, to maybe think. But in amongst training, in amongst, cycling, running, swimming, all these things that you're probably doing, mate, you've just created yourself that space. You mentioned there that there's some inner stuff going on. Is that something you would share with us?
yeah, absolutely. I've you want me to share it, or
Yeah, yeah, mate. I'd love to hear your story. You're asking everyone else, so let's turn the mirror around.
yeah, it's funny actually. I had a couple of people, I've recently started asking people what the most difficult thing they've ever been through is, and I had a couple of people ask me, and I felt kind of not rude by any means, but like the most difficult thing that came to mind at the time was having hitchhiked through every country in Europe, which I did when I met you. But I think in actual fact, the most difficult thing that I'd ever been through was the relationship that I was in when all of that happened. But my now partner asked me if I'd do it again, and I would 100 times over, 1,000 times over. Like, I would go through all of that stuff that I've been through to have the experiences that I've had and meet the people that I've met and learn the lessons that I've learned. Yeah, without second thought. My parents split up when I was 7, and that was fine. They just went in different directions, incompatible, no longer compatible. And that was fine. But my father starting a new family when I was 12, I think and I've only just in the last 6 to 12 months come to the realization that was probably that was the first time that I remember having a dark thought. I just hadn't made the connection. And my cousin helped me make that connection. And it was like, okay, cool. As a 12-year-old boy, for your father to go and start a new family is like, am I not enough for you? What? So that was kind of the start of it. And then there's just, it's kind of carried on ever since. And I've just chipped away at it and read as many books as I can read and done as much stuff as I can do, and just dived into mental health and stoicism and Buddhism and philosophy and psychology and everything over the last, kind of 10 years to really, I think I used the word curiosity as maybe an excuse to try and answer my own questions. Like, and I'm just curious as to what's going on here when I'm actually really curious as to what's going on up here. So, yeah.
Nice one, mate. You said there was a point in your life where you reflected on that, when you, I suppose, slowed down and sort of stopped to think about the impact of your dad starting a new family. Do you remember that point in time? Like, how old were you then, and what sort of came up for you there to actually look back at that?
Oh, so that only happened recently. So I took my cousin on as a coach. My cousin's an ex-professional rugby player. He captained the Blues for a year. Was very close to making the All Blacks. Ended up going and playing in Japan for a couple of years, and just had a huge amount of anxiety around concussions. He's probably another person you could have on the podcast, honestly. But so he went into full-time yoga teacher and life coach, and I was like, "Yo, can I use your services for a little bit? I'm struggling with some stuff." And the first session that we had, and he obviously knows me because so his dad and my dad are twin brothers, and so Tom was able to be like, "Hey, do you think this, or this?" And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I broke down. I was a bit of a, I'm not going to say a mess, but I was in a state. And I called Dad. I don't know if it was that day or the next day, and just said, "Yo, I need to have a yarn with you, have a chat with you," and brought it up. And I think he realized. I think he knew that he had had an impact, but I don't think he realized that I'd maybe come to it or we hadn't had that chat. But like Dad and I are best mates. We're thick as thieves, like every time I have a tough time, I'm like, "Hey, can I just use you as a sounding board?" And he's 69 this year. But he's probably got 4 or 5 lives of knowledge when it comes to or wisdom, he just the most random little bits. He's like, "What about this?" I'm like, "Brilliant. Thank you." So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, mate. You've got such courage there to, confront your dad about that and to speak about that. And I'm honored that you can share that in a vulnerable way, with me and with the listeners, dude. So I appreciate that very much. Where do you think that courage came from? Is that something that you've always had, or you've just had that relationship with your dad that you can open up and speak like that? Or is that something that you built along the way?
I don't think it's courage. I don't think I've learned it or practiced it. It's really hard to answer that question. I've recently stumbled across optimistic nihilism. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Yeah, it's basically, nihilism is the idea that nothing matters, right? Optimistic nihilism is the idea that nothing matters, so you have your purpose in your own hands. And so it kind of just puts a positive twist on nihilism. And I still think that in the grand scheme of things, nothing matters. And so I guess it just gives me the freedom to be like, okay, cool. Like, what's the worst that can happen if I share my story? If somebody else can live a freer life, cool. But in the grand scheme of things, I probably just have no filter. And it's not that I don't care. Like I truly do. And I love what I am doing. And I love the idea of being able to inspire people to live better or more freely or whatever it is that I'm inspiring people to do. But truthfully, I just do it because I love doing it. And I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. Like, I don't do it because it matters. If it does matter, that's just a byproduct of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, mate. And I can't wait to dive into that a little bit more. But before we dive into your challenge, I've just got one more question off the back of this. And it's the question that you're asking in your videos today, because you ask people about their challenging moment, but then you ask them about, okay, what are the lessons you've learned from that? What are the big takeaways you think you've learned from the challenges in your life?
There's 3 that always come back from adventure races, and I really discovered them in the 10 Great Walks in 2021. But there's kind of 3 that I constantly come back to, and one is the dichotomy of control. So, controlling the things that are in your control and not worrying about the things that aren't. And I think it just gives you so much freedom to be like, it's just a simple step back. Can I change this situation that I'm in right now? And if I can, do something about it. And if I can't, lean into it, kind of thing. Second one is festina lente, which is Latin for make haste slowly, or slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And it just, the idea of slowing down a little bit to speed up. It's the best way that I can use it as an example is in orienteering, which is hard because it's obviously a physical thing, but with map and compass and those sorts of things, right? You're seeing a lot of orienteering or navigation races. A lot of the excited younger generation, they'll they'll shoot off and they won't necessarily plan their route, but the older, generally older or wiser groups will take 5 or 10 minutes and sit down and actually map a route and make sure that it is the right route. So they might lose a couple of points in the first 10 minutes, but they're probably going to make up 100 points in the long run. And then the third one's just have fun. Just enjoy the process. And that comes back to that optimistic nihilism. I think it's like, in the grand scheme of things, like, it doesn't really matter. So enjoy it. Yeah, those are the
That's big, mate. There's a lot to unpack there, but I love that. It's like,
Yeah.
the rules that you live your life by, the values that you've got. And I can see the freedom and the weight that must be lifted by just following those 3 steps.
Yeah. Yeah, there's hundreds of other small ones. Like I say, if someone, it's kind of, I feel like I'm maybe taking a bit of a few lessons from Dad in regards to just, he was actually saying the other day, he was on one of the Tough Yarns. I'm not sure if you saw it, but he was saying that he used to listen to a guy on the radio who was a collector of philosophy. And I feel like I'm kind of getting to that point where if someone's having a bit of I could be like, oh, this philosophical idea or this Stoic philosophy, or, it's fun.
Yeah, I can see it, mate. I can see it. And I look forward to learning more about it. I'm only just starting to step into the Stoic sort of philosophy now. I've had a couple of guests on talk about that. But yeah, it's pretty eye-opening and it's interesting. So I'm walking down that path now, mate. Probably a long way behind you, but it's still an interesting journey to go on.
I'm sure there are other paths that you're probably far ahead of me. We're all on different paths and kind of the same path at the same time, I guess. So yeah.
Let's talk about this 100-day cold lake challenge, mate. You've let in where the idea came from. But you're getting people. You're not doing it just by yourself jumping in a lake. You're actually walking up to complete strangers, and you're asking them to jump into a freezing cold lake with you.
Yeah.
What's this all about for people who haven't seen it?
The idea is to inspire people or encourage people to do difficult things and have meaningful conversations. My logic behind it was that if I can ask a complete stranger to jump in a freezing lake in the middle of winter, then someone can ask for help or ask someone for a coffee. I think there's so much fear around asking someone out for a coffee or trying to make a friend or something like that. And yeah, the logic is that if I can ask a complete stranger who has no intention of jumping into a freezing lake, is not prepared to do so, generally jumps in their underwear. If I can convince them or ask them to do that, then you can ask someone for a cup of coffee and make a friend, or if you have friends and you need to be able to ask for help because you're struggling. That was kind of the intention. I never intended on it being any particular length. I think my OCD just thought probably a couple of weeks in, I was like, 100 days is nice, or maybe winter. I didn't know when. And it's quite funny, actually, because you say 100-day challenge and you're not wrong, but I remember doing 100 days and then waking up on day 101 thinking, sweet, I've done the 100 days. I really want to go and ask someone to jump in the lake. So I went down on day 101 and I was like, yo, crazy proposal. So, I suppose that leans into, or that shows you how genuine I am in that I do it just because I love it. Like, and it was awesome, actually, because I think I got to day 100 and then there was no pressure for me to do it at that point. Then it was like, sweet. Now it doesn't matter because that's done. Whatever that is done. Now I can just really enjoy the process. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Now, we often see the person that you're engaging who is coming to jump in the lake with you. But I'm curious, like, how many people did you have to ask to convince someone to jump in the lake with you? Or was less than you
Honestly, thought? I should have averaged it out. It'd be somewhere between 1 and 3 and 1 and 4 people would say yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like a lot of days, it was the first person that I asked said yes.
Yeah.
It would have been fun to have done the math on it. Just, for the mathematical side of my brain, it would have been great, but it was a high hit rate.
Yeah. What did those moments look like? Can you describe them? Was there like hesitation, laughter, fear? What could you feel when you were first asking these people to do something probably pretty crazy for most people, jumping in a freezing cold lake in New Zealand in the middle of winter?
Yeah. The first one, I remember being surprised. I was expecting it to be like 1 in 10, 1 in 20 people might say yes. And I think it was the second guy I asked, Charlie. He was like, yeah, I'll jump in the lake with you. And I was like, oh. cool, okay. I was like, yeah, sweet. Now we got to go for a swim. No idea what I was doing. And then towards I suppose kind of as it went on, there was a lot of like disbelief, kind of like, are you serious? Like, yeah, it's right there. A lot of people, actually, a couple of cool lessons that I learned was curiosity was often if someone was curious, they were often the people to get in. A lot of people would just, when I say a lot, those two or three who would say no would generally be quite quick, just like, nah, not interested, whatever, keep walking. And the people would be like, why? Then they would be the ones who jumped in when they realized there was a reason behind it, and I wasn't just some, you know, weirdo or just doing it for clout, for social media kind of likes and clicks kind of thing. When they realized there was actually meaning behind it, they were like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, I'll do that. And then in the later stages, I had people hunting me down. There was a couple of guys who spent 2.5 hours walking up and down the beach looking for me, and they're about to give up before they saw me. And I saw them with towels, and I was like, pointed at them, and they're like, so that was pretty cool as well.
You're a celebrity, mate. There you go. People are hunting you down.
Yeah, world famous in Queenstown.
Did you notice that the people who jumped in the lake with you, like after you've done that, pretty tough physical challenge for a lot of people, did that help them open up in terms of the conversations you were having, like the conversation before, during, and after that experience?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. I think I've just transitioned and gone towards asking people what the most difficult thing in their life been. And I noticed there was like hesitation there that I hadn't seen from the people that jumped in the lake with me. And so you're bang on. And that's why I changed the introduction to that. And I noticed that there's a more effective way to be able to ask for people for a conversation. Not that that's a surprise. I've been in sales for 14 years, but yeah, no, I had some pretty deep and meaningful conversations with people. Oftentimes we'd go and get a coffee afterwards off camera. And my only goal was to inspire people to start a conversation. I'm not a professional, so I can't tell you how to have a conversation. But I would go and have a yarn with these guys and have a coffee with them after the fact. And I was told things from people that they hadn't told, spouses or parents or children, which, yeah, was pretty eye-opening, mind-boggling. What's the word? I felt trusted, I guess. It was pretty cool.
That's amazing, mate. Like, to think about the short period of time that you've known these people, but I suppose you just being open, honest, vulnerable yourself, opening that space to talk about mental health or challenges, and then having that experience together, that physical experience, getting in the cold water, just how it can change people. What do you put that down to, do you think?
No idea. No, I couldn't put words on that. One thing I have noticed is that whilst we need to ask for help, we also need to be just as available to provide any ears to listen. And you just mentioned it, which triggered a thought path there. I started kind of towards the end of it, inspiring people to ask for help, but also hopefully inspiring people to actually, you don't have to give advice. You just, if someone knows that you're in their corner, then they're going to be in a far better space. So, sorry, I can't answer that question.
Mate, you've done well. I like what you said there. From a coaching perspective, we're not here to fix. We're here to listen. We're here to create space. And what you've said is very mature in that sort of sense. And obviously, that's what you were doing as you did that. I'm curious, like, over those 100 days, what did you learn about yourself?
I love doing difficult things, and I love human connection. Those are, I had someone pretty early on. I don't know if they were taking the mickey or not, but they're like, I reckon you just like cold plunges and talking to people. I was like, you got me. But like I say, day 100, day 101 was really when I was like, actually, I just love doing this. So, I did learn to be more present for sure. And I definitely learned to hold space better. There's no doubt about that. Just from having those conversations. I remember, and it doesn't irk me, but it keeps me honest. The most popular video is the video of a guy who lost his best friend to depression, or a good friend of his to depression, and he said it on video, and we're in the water, so my mind was obviously cold water, like video, everything's happening, and he said he lost his friend to depression. And I said something along the lines of like the water was cold. I was like, I just completely just missed that moment. And the amount of comments that I get, it's gutting that that's the one that went viral, because I get comments daily, or at least a comment a day kind of thing. Like, I can't believe he said this and you missed it. And I'm like, I was responding to a lot of the first ones to be like, look, yeah. And then now I just ignore them. I don't ignore them. And actually, that's the wrong choice of words. I take it on board and I'm like, yeah, no, I did miss that. And I think it keeps me a lot more present in a day-to-day basis now, because I'm like, I missed that, and I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that's been probably the biggest lesson for sure.
Wow. That's tough, mate, because we're only human and we all make mistakes. But what you're doing, like the courage to have what you're doing and being able to step into that, is something that a lot of people would struggle with. And the message you're putting out there is so positive. Like, I think it's fantastic that you're having these tough yarns and you're doing it from a place of caring and a place of trying to say to people that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to, open these channels and talk to a stranger or talk to your mates. And yet society picks out the one little flaw that you maybe had. So I want to encourage you to keep going, buddy, because what you're doing is impressive, and you deserve to have the support around you.
I appreciate that. Like I say, I wouldn't change it, because it's taught me a lesson for sure.
Yeah.
And I've been in touch with a lot of people that I've had those sorts of conversations with, and they're all pretty happy with the way that they're happy with our friendship kind of thing. So it's just, like I say, it's probably been, in fact, do you know what? It has been probably the biggest lesson, and because of that exact thing, and because of the fact that it has gone viral, and because of the fact that I do still get, 10 to 15 comments, amazing, epic, cool. And then just that one that's, I can't believe you missed it. And I'm like, neither can I. Still to this day. And it frustrates me that you've reminded me, but thank you, because you're keeping me honest for future video. Sorry.
That's it, mate. The most valuable lesson. It's funny how sometimes our biggest mistakes can become the most valuable thing in the whole lot, isn't it? So,
100%.
Yeah. It's funny, like a lot of what you're doing is all around mental health. It all ties back into, the mental health struggles that we're going through. And I think especially for a lot of men, it's so difficult for them to ask for help. Why do you think that is?
Just stigma. I think we're there's so many traits that I think are both nature and nurture, and we have to be strong, especially if we have families. We have to be the protector of the family, and all of those sorts of things. And I know that that's changing a lot, and that's awesome. But then I think and I'd love to have a chat with a neuroscientist or someone who really understands like the physiology side of things, because I think there's something in us that needs, I mentioned it earlier on, but like a rite of passage. And that's why CrossFit and High Rocks and Ironman and ultramarathons have taken off, or at least in my mind, from what I've seen, so much is because we don't have a rite of passage anymore. If you look at the San Bushmen in Africa, their rite of passage is to paint like mud on their face, let it dry, and then crawl through bullet ants. And if the mud cracks, it means they've shown emotion and they lose their rite of passage, or they have to go and hunt a lion or something. You know what I mean? And so if you're hunting a lion where you have to crawl through bullet ants and not show emotion, if that is a part of our male physiology, then maybe we're almost designed to not show emotion, which, I'm still discovering myself. Maybe that's the next step, is go and do a PhD in physiology or psychology or something, who knows. But that's my 2 cents on why I think men especially are so conservative with their emotions.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, mate. I like what you're saying there. As part of the project that I'm working on with Men in Midlife, the program we've set up, we have a rite of passage in there that we've designed as well. And it's like separation, letting go of what we call the warrior archetype, the masculine archetype of the warrior, the pusher, the striver, the provider, the one who's going to burn himself out if he just keeps going, and stepping into the role of the king. So it's like this separation, the challenge, and then the reintegration there, and just trying to get them to, connect with those masculine archetypes and go through that sort of identity shift. So I like the fact that you've brought up rite of passage there, and I agree with you. I think, we miss the rite of passage from young boys turning into men. We don't have that like our tribal ancestors did. And I think we miss the rite of passage in midlife, where we go from potentially being the warrior to being the elder, or stepping into the chief role. And there's a different type of energy in those different stages of our life, but our society these days really isn't set up to cater for that. And for whatever reason, that's affecting men's health, especially the mental health. We look at statistics of loneliness, suicide, all these sort of things coming up. And does it tie back into that? The space is not there for men to connect at that deeper level.
Yeah, that's so. Are you leaning into the idea of, in real layman's terms, but the doer becoming the teacher?
Yeah, that's the idea. So slow down.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to push ourselves that hard, or, at that point in our life, we have pushed ourselves, our 20s and 30s. And, the warrior serves us. That energy serves us. We're chasing maybe career, status, money, a partner, the house, the car, whatever it is, But we get to that point where maybe it's midlife and we say it's the midlife crisis, but I feel that we sort of hit a wall and we're like, well, this isn't fulfilling anymore. And is this what life's all about? And is there more to life? Like, a lot of guys I'm talking to are asking those questions, but they've never done the inner work. They've never sat down to say, well, what are my values? What do I really want? What is important to me? How am I living my life? So it's getting them to reflect on that. And it sounds like you've done a lot of reflection and a lot of research yourself, mate, to get to where you are today, which is inspiring to see. What do you think's changed that perspective for you, like being able to ask for help?
I think just it comes back a little bit to that nothing matters. And I think we have this idea that people judge us way more than they really do. And that's probably got a lot. I mean, the ego obviously would have a lot to do with why we wouldn't show emotion and ask for help. And that I could probably actually jump back to that. But is just accepting that asking for help is probably more of a sign of strength than a show of weakness. Full stop. But B, even if it is a sign of weakness, who cares? Like, why should that matter? If it's a sign of weakness, but it means you can get more done, does that not then make you stronger after the fact? So, yeah, I think that's probably the easiest thing for me, is just going, actually, I just don't care what other people think anymore. And if you think that it's a sign of weakness, cool. I'll go and find someone else, and I probably won't talk to you again. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
think
mean? It doesn't matter.
It's yeah. It's a shame though, isn't it? Because I agree with you. I think the ability to ask for help, the ability to be vulnerable, to admit when you're struggling, that's a sign of strength. Like, that's uncomfortable. To step into that and ask your best mate, to talk to your dad, to talk to a complete stranger, like, that really takes a lot of courage. Whereas to bury that emotion, or to think that we can fix it ourselves, like, that's weakness. That's you running away from fear, or running away from being able to deal with it. And I think that's costing us. But it's like, how do we change that? And I think, it's incredible to see what you're doing with that physical challenge of jumping in the cold to bring up the emotional conversation. And if that creates space or creates energy or whatever it does to build trust or connection, and then you find people are opening up and being able to talk to you, even though they've just met you, there's something in that, something powerful in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a great one the other day when you mentioned kind of burying emotion. It's the same with conflict or anything, right? Someone commented on one of the videos saying, conflict ignored is conflict escalated. And I just really liked that. Just the idea of like, it's almost delayed gratification, right? It's like,
Yeah.
actually, Dad sent me another one a couple of maybe 6 weeks ago or something, which was quite similar as well. As like, there is always going to be discomfort. It's either you choose discomfort now or you choose discomfort later. The gym's the perfect example, right? It's like you go to the gym and it's uncomfortable, but you're fit and healthy, so you're comfortable later. Or you don't go to the gym because it's comfortable, and then later on it's going to be uncomfortable. It's the same with mental health. It's like, cool, if you're uncomfortable now, having a conversation is going to be difficult and it's going to be uncomfortable, but at least later on you'll be better. Whereas if you just hold on to it because you think for some reason make you more comfortable, it'll have massive repercussions later on.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I sometimes use that same analogy with our health, or our nutrition. It might be uncomfortable to change your diet now and start to eat healthy and cut out all the crap. It's not that instant gratification. You're going to have to work hard on it. But if you get uncomfortable now and you do the hard work, you're going to feel a lot better in your 60s or 70s than if you just stay where you are. Then it's going to be a lot more uncomfortable. So that I like that one. It resonates. And you're right, with mental health, it does as well. So it's a good thing to look at.
Everything.
Yeah, yeah. So that 100 days of stepping into the cold lake is done and dusted now. I'm sure you'll do it, mate, because you enjoy it, and you'll probably pull a few strangers in with you. I see you've stepped into
Yeah.
I see you've stepped into a new challenge now. Like you're now walking up to people and you're asking them about difficult moments in their life. Why the switch, and what do you hope to get from this?
So it's a bit of a thought experiment. I had an epiphany in the shower the other night. I've been trying to figure out which direction I take Tough Yarns, because in my mind, the lake's, it's still cold, but it's becoming summer and it's too easy and rah. So I've been trying to figure it out for a couple of weeks, and I had this epiphany where I was going to ask people, have you heard of Mo Gadot by chance?
No.
He did a phenomenal podcast with Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, and it's the second time that I'm listening to it. But he used to be the chief business officer of the Google X, and they did an experiment where he's basically the forefront of AI and all that sort of stuff. But they did an experiment where I think they got something like 12,000 people. They asked them what the most difficult experience that they'd ever been through in their life was, what lessons they'd learned from it, and whether or not, if they could go back and erase the event from happening, not erase it from their memory, but if they could erase the event from happening, but it meant that they lose the lessons, the experiences, the friends that they gained from it, would they go back and undo it? And 99.9% of people said that they would go through that same experience again. He was asked the reason that he ended up going down that path of making his goals to make 1 billion people happy. And he's got a scientific equation that equates happiness effectively. But he started down that path because he lost his son to just an unfortunate series of events under an appendicitis operation. His son was 21, healthy, all good. And he was asked the same question, if he would go back and undo the event. And at the time, he had estimated that they had made 51 million people happy. And he thought about the idea of either his son or 51 million people happy, and he would go through that experience again, which is hard to hear for, I think, a lot of people, especially people with kids and all those sorts of things. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and ask people. Maybe not. I'm still grappling with the idea of asking them, especially with the death of a loved one, if they would go through that again. But definitely what experiences they've had and what lessons they've learned. Because if we extrapolate forward, everything that you've been through has made you who you are now, which means that whatever you're going through now is going to make you who you're going to be then. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I like it, mate. Are you finding this challenge harder than previous? Are you finding now just sitting down and having this conversation without putting the physical challenge of the cold water in front of it more difficult?
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable. Like the cold water was like, yeah, I'm going to go for a swim. It's exciting. And now I'm like, oh, I got to go. I'm going to go. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I did the first 2 days where I approached people and said, can I ask you a difficult question? And the responses were interesting, I guess, quite surface level. And so I switched it up and used an anchor or a sales technique, which is kind of like an accusations audit or something to, I have a crazy proposal. Would you tell me about a difficult time in your life? And last night, the guy who I ended up speaking with doesn't talk about his emotions, doesn't talk to people much. And he ended up telling me about losing his brother and his best friend and getting divorced. And I was like, this is wow. So, yeah, I'm fascinated to see where that goes for sure.
It's crazy how just the change in how you approach this or the words that you choose to use can have such a big impact on the response that you get. And it's an interesting experiment to run, isn't it? Like how we communicate, and the space that you create there for them to give an answer, like without jumping in at high risk. Hey, tell me your challenges, but
Yeah.
giving it that little playful sort of spin, how it changes that setup. How far in are you now with this 100-day challenge, mate?
3 days. Well, so this one's just there's no 100-day challenges.
There's no okay.
I'm just going with it. I start my ride in 12 days, so I won't be doing it then. I'll just be focusing on the ride. But ironically, and like I say, I'll put the video up tonight. But last night, whilst I was just introducing myself to Marlon, there was another guy go, "Are you the mental health guy?" And I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "Can we go for a swim?" I was like, "Can you let me interview this guy and then we'll go for a swim?" So that's why when you said there's no more swims, I was like, I'll be posting that one tonight. But so, yeah.
There you go, mate. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've mentioned your bike ride there. Let's step into that because I've seen you post about the bike ride and I think it's incredible what you're doing. So for the listeners, what's this bike ride all about, mate?
New Zealand has 23 great rides, starting in the very top of New Zealand and finishing near the very bottom of New Zealand. They're kind of spread out all across the country. They range from the shortest one is 33 kilometers of like mountain biking trails to 330 kilometers of kind of gravel trails. And I thought, cool, I'm going to ride them all. And then I thought, how am I going to get between them? I was like, I'll ride between them as well. Why not? So yeah, I still need to finalize. I know the route, but I haven't mapped out the exact numbers, but I'm guesstimating about 5,500 kilometers. I reckon it'll be 350 to 400 hours of riding in November. And just head down, bum up, go. And once again, the idea is that if I can ride 5,500 kilometers around New Zealand in a month, then you can ask for help. Kind of. Yeah, for less words than I could probably describe it in.
Yeah, you stepping into your element, mate, of challenging yourself physically. But I like that you're using it to shed a spotlight on, mental health on the toughness of asking for help and what you're willing to put yourself through. So other people start to think about asking for help. Mm-hmm. It's pretty incredible, mate. What does this journey mean to you personally?
Oh, it's a lot of things actually. There's so many different things that are happening along the way. I haven't been clean shaven since before I met you, so that's going to be fun. Getting rid of this for the first time in well over a decade. B, I'm going to start within a couple of hours of starting. I will be riding past the house that I grew up in and past the place that I remember, like that I had my first memorable dark thought, or yeah. And then I will be finishing at my home in Queenstown. So it'll be kind of like a journey from where I grew up to where I live now. And just, I'm doing it fully self-supported. So I'm doing it in a way in which I can only, or will only need to rely on myself, but I will be accepting help from whoever wants to offer it. And it has blown my mind as to how much support there is out there already. I've had 7 different offers for accommodation in a small town called Timaru in New Zealand. Ironically, I'm not even going through Timaru, so it's kind of
it's a redirect, mate.
I've had to deny all 7 of them. But yeah, I hope to see a different side of humanity along the way, and I hope to show other people that different side of humanity as well. I've seen it myself, having hitchhiked every country in Europe when I did it. but I want to be able to. We didn't document that, and there's other stuff that I've done for because I want to do it, but I want to be able to show people that actually people they do want to help. That's one thing I've really noticed is that asking for help, you're actually doing somebody else a solid. Like if you're giving someone the opportunity to help, they're like, yeah, let me, that's cool. And then they get a sense of worthiness or sense of worth or that makes them stronger and everybody wins.
Yeah. It's an incredible thing, isn't it? And it's incredible that you can ask for that. I think a lot of people could potentially say that they're going to do some tough physical challenge like what you're doing. Okay. But to actually be able to broadcast that, hey, you're going to accept help along the way. And if anyone wants to help me, let me know and I'll be
Yeah.
there. And it's awesome that you're getting that response that you're getting, mate. And it's only early days. Like, when did you do that post about actually doing this right?
1st of October. So I publicly announced it 1 month out. And I've just been chipping away at it ever since. So
yeah. And you've got 1 month to cover how far exactly?
5,500 kilometers on a bike. So
yeah, and it's all in the name of building more awareness around mental health, and you're doing it for Movember.
correct. Yeah. Mental health is kind of the overarching theme. I think the two things that I'm good at and want to inspire people to do more of is doing difficult things. And whatever that difficult thing is, I think I mentioned earlier on, like for some people it's getting in a freezing lake, for some people it's getting out of bed, like whatever the difficult thing is for you, do that. But also have meaningful conversations. I think as Kiwis, we're great, and Aussies, we're great at going to a Sunday barbecue, turning up, having a couple of beers, flipping a steak, and then going home. And like we just, how was your week? Yeah, all good. My boss is a dick. Whatever. My boss is a legend, but like that's the sort of conversation that we have. And then I talk to people from the Mediterranean or South America, and it's like their Sunday catch up is 9 a.m. Go to the shops together, get a whole lot of stuff, put it on the barbecue, play some football, play some sport. And now they're until 9 p.m. and they spend 12 hours. And that first hour is like, hey, how was your day? How was your week? Whatever. And then they start to get into a lot more stuff. And they have their own issues, which I've learned over the last few months, but they definitely have that communication side locked down.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the Australian culture, I don't know the NZ culture, but I assume it's very similar to us, is we're very great at the surface level stuff. Like you say, we can chat about sport, we can chat about cars, we can chat about, especially blokes, we can chat about the weather. But to really dig deep and ask those powerful questions like, what are you struggling with right now, mate? Or how's your mental health? There seems to just be a wall there, doesn't there? We're not taught that at a young age, and we're just not taught how to have those conversations or how to create space in that medium. So it's just so challenging, mate. Where do you see this going for you? Like, obviously you're working through these different challenges now, you're creating space, you're having these conversations, you're inspiring more people to ask for help. Like, is there a mission in mind, or you're just going with the flow and see what happens?
Just going with the flow. If you'd asked me, or if you'd told me 4.5 months ago that I was going to have, knocking on 100,000 followers by the time I started the Great Rides, I'd be like, good one. I don't know. Like, I knew that it would be possible because as soon as I started to get some interest, I was like, oh, this is getting a hit kind of thing, But yeah, like I say, I have an epiphany. My partner takes the mickey out of me so much. I have so many ideas. I'll get to the shower and be like, I've had an idea. And she's like, really? Another one? And I'm like, I'm not even going to tell you about them anymore. She's like, no, I'm kidding. Tell me about them. But I don't know. That's a really long way of saying I have no idea where this is going, what it's going to do. I am actually, no, that's a lie. No, I do have an idea. I've been involved in sales for 12 and a half, 13, 14 years, coaching, teaching sales all across Australia and New Zealand and America. I've realized that sales is just communication packaged in like a slimy, unlikable load of terminology, basically. And if I can take away that slimy, unlikable kind of side of it and be like, this is how to introduce yourself, and this is body language, and this is tone of voice, and this is effective questioning, I want to teach people how to communicate. I have been teaching it for over a decade anyway. I just need to reword a few things so that it doesn't sound like I'm, some sort of dating coach or salesperson or whatever it is. genuinely, do you want to make a friend? Cool. This is how to, this is a good introduction to use. This is an icebreaker. This is, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, don't know when or where or how, but
It is incredible what you've just said. You've nearly got 100K followers from the stuff that you've been doing. So there is definitely an interest in what you're doing.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people are feeling isolated. A lot of people are feeling disconnected. I think loneliness is, growing and growing statistic, and people are just clutching on what you're saying there. And I think there's a real need for that. Um, how's it feel to be on your side of that thing where you've actually seen your audience grow and you're obviously getting a lot of people commenting and asking questions and maybe even inspired by what you're doing? What does that feel like?
this is probably going to sound like a bit of a fob off to that question, but those likes and comments and shares and all of that sort of stuff mean nothing to me in comparison to the private messages that I get from people who have changed their life because of those videos. Like that's the likes and comments and shares and views and followers and all that sort of stuff. That's cool. But the guy who messaged me 2 months ago saying he had a fight with his sister 4 years ago and hasn't spoken to her since, but is going to reach out to her because of my videos, that's the sort of like, okay, cool. There's an impact being made here. And I think that pretty much sums up how I feel about it. I was saying to Tom when I first started, I was like, if I can inspire one person per video, I'm winning, kind of thing. If I can make one person smile from each video. And so my ego, which I've grappled with for as long as I've known about egos, still gets me when a video's got 5,000 views instead of 10,000. I'm like, what? And then immediately I'm like, no, you got a message saying that this person's changed their life because of that video. Get out of
Mm.
it. Carry on with your
Yeah.
life. So, um, yeah, yeah. That's
that's
how I'm.
pretty, that's, that's awesome, dude. That's pretty rewarding. Like to know that you're having such a big impact and you're changing people's lives like that. Like that's the whole reason to do what you're doing, mate. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's impressive. I like it. Is there anything we haven't spoken about on our podcast already that you would like to bring to the table, mate?
I I'd love to dive into the movement a little bit more because I remember, and it kind of came to my mind right at the start. I think the physical, there's so many links between the physical, emotional, spiritual, philosophical, like all of it kind of comes together. And I think a lot of my stuff started from obstacle course racing, and I'd love to get your, have just a bit of a yarn about it because obviously
Yeah.
this is your forte as well. But from memory, you've done a lot of stuff with Edo Portal and movement culture and all of that sort of stuff as well. Yeah. And
Yep.
I think moving the body, like gym strength work is all well and good, but like gymnastics, being outdoors, breathing fresh air, swinging from trees, crawling, jumping, climbing, like that sort of stuff just lights. I don't know. Is it just me? I just feel like my inner child's like, yeah, let's roll around in the sand. And yeah, like, where are you at with that stuff?
I agree with you, mate. And my experience, I suppose, comes from, you know, growing up playing team sports is one. And in the team and the camaraderie that you have playing sport together. Like, I think that opens up conversations and you have deeper connections with the mates you play sports with. I went through a period of time myself where I did a lot of endurance training, competed in marathons, triathlons, and Ironmans. I had a couple of close mates I trained with, which was awesome. But in reality, the physical challenge is there, but I did find that a little bit more isolating than the team sports. I didn't find I connected as well.
Uh-huh.
Um, in personal training, in the gym, in Globo gyms, yeah, there's a bit of connection in the classrooms and stuff like that, maybe with the clients you're working with, but it doesn't have the same click as you'd know, or the same feel as, let's say, a CrossFit gym, where people get into that community, they train
Yeah.
together, they go for coffee before and after training, or they'll go for lunch, and they make friendships. And even in a big city like London, which can be isolating to a lot of people, by joining a gym or being part of a club or a community like that, they these are people with a common interest. We're in this together. And I
Yeah.
think when you're in that struggle together, that builds trust and that builds a deeper connection. And we saw that in the gym. We saw that in the community that we're creating there. So I think it is a big thing. And right now for me, like I'm stepping into more of the health coaching role. I'm, still doing personal training online, but I see in coaching one-to-one, yeah, it's great. And people make changes and people will bring certain things to the table. But in the short time now that I've been doing group coaching, inviting men into what we're doing with the Warrior to King, the conversation there is so much more powerful. And in the group, I'm not leading, I'm not teaching, I'm just trying to have one foot in and one foot out, spark the conversation and let them talk to each other about their struggles, about what's going on in their life. And the walls come down, like they're not so protective. When one man says he's having trouble in his relationship right now, and this is what's going on for him, other guys go, fuck me too. Like
Mhm.
the group connection there is incredible.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily with the physical. Like I know we're talking about the physical, but I feel there's something different between one-to-one conversation and potentially group conversation. But I think it's about creating the space. It's about
Mhm.
being able to slow down and pause there. So whether the physical, act of jumping in the lake creates that pause moment, and whether it's the physical challenge of a sport or the gym, CrossFit, whatever it is, or whether it's just like men's circles or creating that space there. I think there's something definitely in that. And our lives are so noisy. There's so much happening all the time. Like when do we actually slow down? And
Mm.
when are we more present with ourselves, but also present with the people around us? And I
Mhm.
think what you've done there of jumping in the lake is you've forced someone to stop their day
Mhm.
to get stripped down to their underwear
Yeah.
and to
Vulnerable.
jump
Vulnerable.
vulnerable. That's
Yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
Vulnerable in so many ways. And
Yeah.
then jump in a freezing cold lake with you. Like if that
Yeah.
doesn't bring you into the present moment, what the fuck
Mm.
does?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I know you wanted to talk about movement. I think what I'm trying to say there is I see that movement brings us together, and I see that community brings us together, and I see that when I'm moving, like handstands and bodyweight stuff and Ido Portal stuff or whatever it is, I have to be very present. I'm in my body. I'm not in
Mhm.
my head. I don't know if that brings any light to you, mate, or makes any difference. But I also feel in the group stuff, maybe I'm not so much in my head. I'm in the space a bit more. I'm more aware um, than if I'm just by myself and these ruminating thoughts are going on, or
Mm.
I don't have those connections. Does
It
that
it
help?
does. There was one thing you said there which really I have thought about a lot over the last probably 6 weeks, which was you're talking in a men's group and, one bloke says, I'm having trouble with my relationship, and everyone else goes, "Oh, actually, so am I." Is each conversation inspires another is kind of something that came to mind maybe 6 weeks ago. And I was talking to a good friend of mine. We were in a car, we were driving to a trail running race. And my friend we were talking about mental health and just a bit of everything, I guess. She'd kind of been through a divorce, and we were talking about a whole lot of stuff. And she mentioned that she'd seen a counselor a few times, and I asked her if I can't remember exactly what it was, but I kind of asked her a little bit about the counselor and how that had kind of helped. And she just kind of, I could tell she just brushed over the surface. And not that that bothered me by any means, but I was like, I wonder why she's just brushing over the surface. And so I dove into one of my own experiences with a counselor that I had for a while and just kind of opened up myself. And she was like, well, now that you say that, like now that you mention it, and then she just like let it all out. And I was like, and maybe a little bit of me was like, I wonder what, this is a bit of a thought experiment. Like, not that I needed to hear her whole story,
Mm,
but I was able to give her space and the confidence. It's kind of like, like it's laying down your own shield or your own sword or whatever it is, like
yes.
going back to the warrior thing. It's like, if you've got your shield up, you're like, hey, how are you doing? They're not going to be like, oh, let me lie down. But if you're like, hey, how are you? They're gonna be like, oh, well, I can attack him, or like he's or that person is showing vulnerability to me. They obviously trust me enough, and so I can probably trust them too.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and maybe I understand that subconsciously. And to go back to your question earlier on in regards to why I'm comfortable sharing, maybe that's it. Is because I'm like, well, I know that if I share, maybe people will feel more comfortable sharing, not necessarily with me, but one of my best friends' wives has been like inspired by a lot of the conversations and stuff that I've had, which is super cool. Not that was like the intention, but purely just because I've been able to have conversations and she's been able to, maybe live a better life because of it. So yeah, I don't know if we're kind of tangents at the moment, but just riffing
No,
here.
it's great stuff, mate. And I like what you say because it is about taking off our own armor. If we've got
Mm,
armor on and we're not letting people in, then
yeah.
why should they let us in as well? And having the courage to be vulnerable first, to say where you're struggling or to share what's going on for you can open the doors for those conversations because
Yeah.
it does build trust and it does also just bring you down to an even level. And if we're not willing to do that with ourselves, then how can we expect other people,
Mhm.
to open up and do that with us as well? There was something that popped to my mind when you sort of said that. It's funny because, you're talking about therapy and stuff like that. And all through my coaching course, when I was learning about health coaching and stuff like that, it was always to defer that sort of stuff. So if someone asked me, oh, what are you doing? Or how is this working for you? It's like, oh, look, that's that. I'm glad you've asked me, but let's just step into you a little bit more. You defer it back and you don't really, open up and be vulnerable or share that because it's not about you, it's about the client. And, that's where I first started my health coaching is it's just like, okay, it's all about you. Don't ask me what I eat, how I train, because that's not relevant. But
Yeah.
since stepping into the men's circle, it's been the opposite. It's been like, okay,
Mm,
if I want these guys to open up and I want them to talk to me about that, I have to be willing to go first because I set
mhm.
the level, I set the tone. And if I'm not going to step in and say, hey, this is what's happening to me and this is where I'm at right now, that surface level conversation stays surface level because not
Yeah.
one of them wants to step in and go first potentially. But if I
Mhm.
come in and say, hey, I'm having trouble with my relationship, or right now my health is suffering, or I've just lost one of my best mates, that all of a sudden changes the tone in the room.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting point. And I think there's a lot in there that, we may not yet understand, but I think it helps to connect on a much deeper level.
Yeah, I think there's one more lesson that, when you say all of that, there's one more lesson that I've learned. I've been super fortunate. Growing up, I did get bullied a little bit as a kid, and I'd go to dad and, I'd say, Dad, this person's bullying me. And he's go, oh, why do you think, like, what's going on in their life? I'm 10. He's like, what's going on in their life? And I'm like, no, you're meant to go beat their dad up, aren't you? Like, isn't that how this works kind of thing? And obviously as a 10-year-old, you're like, "Argh." As a 30-year-old, I'm like, whoa, like that was one of the best lessons that I've ever learned is just that attunement and not even empathy, but just attunement. Just like, okay, cool. Someone else has something going on. And that was really eye-opening for me really early on. I had a few people, day 6, I had a girl who lost, her dad 4 years ago to the day of me posting the video, which was a bit uncanny. Day 10, I had a guy from Australia who lost his dad to depression when he was 7 from memory. And then like within the first 3 weeks, I asked a guy if he would come swimming, saying I was doing a project for mental health. And he didn't come swimming, but he said that he'd just found a suicide note from his son, like a week earlier. And I was just like, luckily his son had failed. But I think that was the final straw where I was like, you have no idea what's going on with someone else, And then this conversation that I had with Marlon last night, where it's like, your best friend, your brother, both passing in the last 5 years plus divorce, and it's like if someone gets angry at you in traffic, it's like cut them a break because you've got no idea. Like if they cut you off, it's like yeah, they might be a dick, or they might have just caught their wife cheating on them. I'm just saying, and if you get angry at them, like you're not making the world a better place.
No, that's
And
a powerful
sometimes,
insight, mate. I agree with that too, because it's easy for us to just see the moment and get angry and get frustrated. And it's
yeah,
like that makes us like brings us down into a bad state. But then if we start throwing throwing the toolbox at others, and it's just like it doesn't make the world a better place. And it's a hard thing to navigate, but it's a very powerful lesson I think you share there. As you say that, something comes to mind for me because I think a lot of guys might have trouble having these deep conversations because even if I'm on the other side of the conversation and I've got to ask the questions, and I'm afraid that, okay, what if he turns around and says he's having suicidal thoughts? Or what if he turns around and says that the shit that I just don't know how to answer? I don't know how to reply to that. So I'm going to stay surface level. I'm going to stay safe. How have you found dealing with those sort of things? You know, if a guy comes up to you and these conversations you've had about them losing people or seeing suicide notes, like what goes through your head then, and how are you managing that situation?
I think I'm in a place where I have to be quite strict in the way that I approach it, because I did go through a phase where I was getting a lot of people messaging saying they were having suicidal thoughts or struggling with self-harm, and I was like, I can't help you, unfortunately. I can listen, I can be here, I can ask questions if you would like me to, but I can't give you advice. A, I'm not qualified, and B, it's not my place. I recommend professional help in that situation. But yeah, it took me a while to get my head around that. It definitely, when you put yourself in the space that I've put myself in, it hasn't happened, ironically, for probably a couple of months. I haven't had those sorts of messages. But yeah, like I say, for about a month, I got quite a few, and it was pretty tough. Like I was struggling with it, because I was like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, like what happens if this person, loses their battle? Like is that on me? And so that was quite, it wasn't so much of it's not my fault, but it was more of actually I can't control that. I can do what I can do, and I can listen and I can ask questions, but I can't give advice. And, if it's a friend or a family member and they ask for advice, happy to give it. One thing that I have learned, which I found was really nice, and I think is really good, and I learned it before this, but was more of along the lines of, if someone is venting, and I think it was more in regards to relationships, because your partner or wife or someone, they vent, and you wonder whether or not they actually want you to solve the problem, because sometimes you'll give them advice and like, I don't want advice, I just want ears. And then the other times they're like, are you going to help me fix this? And you're like, which one is it? Is just to ask that question before they start venting, or before you start to have that conversation. It's like, hey, I'm struggling with this problem. It's like, cool, before we start with this, do you want me to come in with a listening hat on and actually just ask questions and just provide space for you? Or do you want me to come in with an analytical hat on and actually try and think of some solutions for you? And I found that a really good way of, maybe it also maybe helps them frame their problem as well. Because they're like, oh, well, if I'm just going in with he's putting his listening hat on, it's like, I can just vent. Doesn't matter, because he'll help me answer. Like, he'll ask questions and maybe help me find the route. Whereas if it's like, oh, no, I want you to help me solve this problem, it's then you're like, oh, shit, okay, cool. I better make it easy enough for him to identify what the problem is so that he can help me solve it. If that makes sense.
It
And
does.
like,
It does.
I only do that with friends and family members. I don't do that with strangers. Maybe if it was someone face to face, I might have that conversation. But yeah,
It's powerful, mate. What you just said is very powerful. I think a lot of guys, we just want to jump in and we want to fix. We're there to fix
sure.
everything,
It
but we're
must be
not so good at
physiological.
listening.
It must be physiological. Like that can't not be inbuilt, right? Like, okay, fix it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Very logical, very let's just get this fixed. But I think learning to listen, learning to hold space, learning to be curious and just ask those questions so that, you can just be there, be present. I think what you said is beautiful as well about the hats, the change of role, and being able just to clearly voice that. Like, what do you want? Do you want advice, or do you just want me to listen?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
a lot of us can learn learn from that. I really do feel.
Luckily,
Yeah.
I'm super fortunate where my partner, she just knows how to. She'll tell me now. She'll just be like, hey, can I get your help on something, like your advice on something? Or she'll be like, I'm having a tough day. And I'm just like, if it's that, I'm like, cool, listen, just be there. Yeah.
Maybe you could step into relationship coaching then, mate. Is that your
Nah,
calling? Oh,
nah,
dear.
I don't think so.
Andrew, I've loved this conversation, mate. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you well for all the stuff that you're about to do. If people want to, follow you, get in touch with you, whereabouts can they find out more?
Tough Yarns on any of the socials, just at Tough Yarns, TOUGHYARNS. I had heaps of younger generation be like, is it TUFF? And I'm like, no, I'm old. Like it's
Glad you cleared that up, mate.
and hopefully toughyarns.com will be updated. I do have toughyarns.com, so you can go there. It doesn't have any information on it at the moment, but I'm updating that hopefully tonight. And then, yeah, if I can do a shout out, if anybody's, wanting to put their coffee money somewhere at the moment, there's links to the Movember page in all the bios of the social pages. And there is, you'd struggle to miss a link to the Movember page in the website if the web developer does what she says she's going to do. So,
Fingers
yeah.
crossed, mate. You set yourself a pretty big goal there. Do you want to share that goal with us?
Goal is 230,000 for Movember. For some reason, my mind went straight to 10,000 per great ride. Just skipped over 1,000. I don't know. Like it was like, yeah, 10,000 per great ride. That's why not? So you can probably tell I don't half-ass anything. Actually, that's another one that I live by. Don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. Yeah, the man who chases two rabbits catches neither. So, yeah, actually, I probably don't live by that because I'm got to be ADHD. Like I have rabbits at a time, but
It's sound advice to try and focus on one rabbit at the time, but
correct.
we've obviously got a lot of responsibilities we're trying to juggle there, mate. I wish you all the best with that, mate, and I reckon you're probably going to smash that target with what you're doing and the way you share these very powerful, impactful stories, and more people need to see what you're doing, and I just want to encourage you to keep it up, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
If this conversation hit home for you, take a moment to check out Andrew's work at Tough Yarns and support his Movember ride across New Zealand. You'll find all the links in the show notes. And while you're there, make sure you join the Midlife Mavericks school community. It's where men in midlife come together to work on their health, connection, and purpose, without judgment, without ego. You can join for free using the link in the show notes. Because conversations like this don't just belong on podcasts. They belong in our everyday lives. I'm Stretch Trainer, and this is the Midlife Mavericks podcast, where we talk about what really matters, health, connection, and purpose in midlife. I hope to see you inside the Midlife Mavericks school community and next time on the Midlife Mavericks podcast.